Hi, my name is Mark Lynn, and I'm the roommate coach. This is KZZH 96.7 FM in Eureka, California. The motto here is World Peace, one roommate at a time. This will be episode 15 of the Roommate Coach. This episode has a relatively lengthy title. I'm calling this one Shared Housing Options for the 21st Century. Now, more and more shared housing means more roommates, and that could mean more roommate problems. So hopefully, by the time the shared housing really kicks in, my Roommate Coach show will be broadcast far and wide, and there will be some resources to reduce roommate problems and make it all work really well. But before we get to that, we have to continue with the introduction here. I want to mention that if you'd like to leave any feedback for the Roommate Coach, you can do that at the website, theroommatecoach.com. You can use the contact link on the homepage. And by the way, while you're on the website, there is a new addition on the homepage. You'll see on the upper right, you'll see a mention about KZZH, about being on the air. If you click on that, you will be brought to a page with just about all of the prior radio shows on the website. They're actually linked to YouTube audio, but if you want to hear prior shows, you can do so on the website. You can also call area 707-362-8000 anytime 24/7 to leave a voice message. That's 707-362-8000. I also like to mention that KZZH has been brought to the air by Access Humboldt. That's accesshumboldt.net. When I first got the idea, about a year and a half ago or so, for the Roommate Coach and began working on it, my initial thought, when I thought about roommates, was almost exclusively based on college students for a couple of reasons, partially some of my own experiences. Actually, my roommate experiences in my college days were not all that bad, although there were a couple of exceptions, a couple of times when I could have used a roommate coach, come to think of it. But I guess what really got my attention, as I've mentioned several times now on the show, was the large ongoing number of roommate horror stories that are reported regularly. I always have trouble with that word, online, on YouTube and any number of forums and places where people are able to share their experiences online. The majority of these, vast majority, seem to be college students, which makes sense. For one, it's a pretty numerous time. It may be one of the most, not sure how to phrase this, one of the largest groups of people that by definition usually have roommates. For all I know, maybe college students. I don't know that. But it's also, for many, the first time in life when they need to live with someone other than a family member. So that can be somewhat of a startling experience for some. So for all these reasons, I just kind of assumed that, well, that's what I mean by roommates, is students. Now, recently, starting with my show last week, or the most recent show, I've begun to explore and begun to realize that actually there are any number of situations in life, and the way things seem to be going, probably going to be more and more in the future, other than student days, when we need to share housing space with someone else. So this is kind of the background for the current show title, which I'm calling Shared Housing Options for the 21st Century. So I'll start discussing some of those here. I guess a quick recap on episode 14, the one from about a week and a half ago, where I started talking about multi-generational housing. Again, if you go to the website and you want to see or hear the prior shows and also see links and things associated with them, I did post some links for episode 14, the last show. The reason that's relevant, it was an article on the BBC website about a shared housing, a multi-generational agency in France that has had and continues to have just excellent results, bringing together young people looking for a place to live with older people who have a home but want and need someone to help out and for companionship and just to be able to stay in their home longer. And I think I mentioned on that show that since I read that article and began exploring the concept, I realized that the concept has been around in this country for, 2 or 3 decades now, at least since the 80s. There is an organization called homeshare.org, and I believe there's also National Shared Housing. I'll put that in the show notes when I get clarification on that. But the point is that that's one of the first examples I began to explore was the multi-generational. So that was a good portion of the last week's show. Now I'm coming to realize that there are even more. There are any number of alternatives for shared housing showing up. A lot of it seems to be based on the demographic, and the big 2 demographics that seem to attract the most attention in this area are the seniors and younger folks just getting started. I guess you could say that for the time being anyway, the people in the middle are more or less on their own, although I imagine market forces and everything else will catch up to them and provide alternatives for them as well. But at this stage of the game, a lot of it has to do with the older folks and the younger folks. So starting with the senior citizen side of the scale, most of the time people want to stay in their own homes as long as they can, even as they age. And of course, the various social services charged with helping are stretched more and more. We've seen this somewhat dramatically here in Humboldt County recently with the threat of several nursing homes closing, although it looks like that's been averted for the time being. And the scientists tell us we're all living longer. And of course, the economy continues to apparently get worse and worse. Property taxes increase. There's any number of reasons why it's increasingly difficult for older folks to keep their homes and to stay in their homes. So for that reason, some of the shared housing alternatives are cropping up and becoming more popular. Kind of a brief recap from last week's show, a real popular trend that has caught on more rapidly in Europe than here, but it seems to be beginning to get some more attention here as well, is the multi-generational approach. Homeshare.org is, I guess, one of the main websites in this country that has a variety of local chapters in quite a few local cities throughout the country. The idea being pretty simple, that if an older person has room in their home to share with a younger person, then the older person gets companionship and possibly some rent or some time, some work, security, various advantages. The younger person gets the benefit of, in some cases, a very nice place to live with a lot less out of pocket than it would cost if it was even possible for the young person. So it's a mutual benefit. And again, as the roommate coach, I always go back to my theme that all of this is predicated on the ability of the people involved to get along with each other and to have the relationship work out reasonably well. You're listening to The Roommate Coach. My name's Mark Lynn. This is episode 15, and I'm calling this one Shared Housing Options for the 21st Century. This is KZZH FM 96.7 FM in Eureka, California. KZZH has been brought to the air here in Eureka and Humboldt County by Access Humboldt. You can reach them at accesshumboldt.net. You can leave feedback for me, the Roommate Coach, at theroommatecoach.com using the contact link on the homepage. You can also listen to prior shows on the website. The homepage has a link to KZZH. You'll see that in the upper right-hand corner. You can also leave a voicemail anytime at 707-362-8000. That's 707-362-8000. Oh, and I always like to mention that the motto here at the Roommate Coach is World Peace, one roommate at a time. I like to think this will be useful regardless of the age of the various roommates. If it's a senior citizen and a young person living together, sharing a home, wouldn't it be nice if they did so peacefully? So in that case, that would be at least two roommates at a time. So that's a step along the way to world peace. And that's the goal here at the Roommate Coach. Another example of a shared housing movement, or a type of shared housing aimed at seniors specifically, comes from Canada. As I mentioned before, it seems like this type thing is catching on more quickly in other parts of the world, although it looks like it is happening in the U.S. as well. But this particular website that I'm looking at is called Solterra Co-Housing. And rather than spell all that out, I will put a link on my website on theroommatecoach.com in the show notes under this episode, which is episode 15. So, but anyway, this outfit in Canada is marketing common jointly purchased homes for seniors, which is something I had not heard of before. Perhaps some of you in the audience have. I don't know. I have no idea if this could even be done legally in this country. I'm not a lawyer and I'm not a realtor, so I'm way out of my depth here in terms of any real authority. I'm only reporting what I'm finding. But apparently in Canada, it is possible for a group. The one article I read mentioned 4 to 6, I guess, is the common number, although I didn't get the impression that was a hard and fast rule. That just seemed to be the numbers that usually wound up working, is that some number of people, generally older people, agree to buy a home together. And I think part of the deal includes having what they call a house mom, hiring someone. I guess the idea is that you're spending so much less if you're buying a sixth of a house rather than an entire house, then presumably there's plenty of room left in the budget if you, again, pooling resources with your housemates at this point, your co-owners. The idea is to have someone come in and keep everything working. I don't know if it's 24/7. I guess that would depend on the situation. This is another outfit that I intend to approach as soon as I can get to it and see if they're willing to let me interview them for the show. I think that would be a fascinating thing to get more specifics on the show itself if I can. And obviously, if you want to go to the website, you can read more about it. But it sounds like a really interesting idea. And again, I assume that steps are taken to increase the likelihood of everyone getting along on a continuing basis, because you could see where that could be a problem if you were not only bound together living there, but also had a whole financial thing, mortgage and everything else tied into it. It wouldn't be a situation that could, I would think, could quickly or easily be changed if you needed to. Although they do say that the share in the home can be sold. And again, I apologize for my ongoing cynicism, but I guess that's part of my job, is to look at the things that can go wrong. To me, that seems like another potential landmine, is that maybe, let's say there's six of you, six strangers. I think the agency, the Solterra people, I'm guessing here, I haven't read the whole website, but I'm pretty sure part of their service is to bring people together and take steps to ensure compatibility. So let's say that's done and it worked out really well. You've got six people, they pool their funds and they buy a nice house and they start living in it. Well, somewhere along the line, one of them decides, let's say it's he wants to sell his share, and he sells it to someone else. Now, I imagine there are steps taken where hopefully there's some way to increase the likelihood of the new person being a good match also, but maybe that doesn't work for whatever reason. So now what started out as a great deal, and I guess you could say, well, but that could happen to anyone. You buy a house and your neighbors are nice, and then the guy next door moves away and some jerk moves in with a 10 super noisy dogs that bark all night or something. Yeah, it does happen. But I think it's safe to say that it would be a lot worse if it was someone you were actually living with inside the same property. So my overriding theme here, the point I'm making with all this, by discussing these various shared housing things that are cropping up, is that the need for, as much as possible, all of these alternatives, which I think we are, as a society, being forced to consider because economic and all the other reasons I've discussed, the likelihood of these things working out will be that much better if people are willing to do some simple steps, which, as the roommate coach, I'm happily prepared to share. There are a variety of things that anyone can do in a shared living situation that will make it more likely that they'll get along. So that's my goal here, and the various shared housing situations. And I'm continuing to be surprised at how many of these I'm finding. And a lot of these have been around for a while, so that's one of the benefits to me of doing this show, is I'm learning a lot myself about things I had no idea existed. So before I leave this particular topic, the Solterra co-housing aimed at seniors who want to buy a home in common with other seniors, and again, this is in Canada, I will read a few sentences from their Getting Started page on their website, and again, I'll put a link to it on my site. This is from the Solterra co-housing model paragraph. It says, and I'm quoting here, Solterra Co-Housing Limited offers an innovative alternative to shared housing options available to seniors. Our ownership is simple. Each owner has an undivided freehold interest in the home, and each co-owner is registered as tenant in common on the title deed. Co-owners control all aspects of operating the entire home, and each resident contributes to and is accountable for household decisions. We have multiple owners on one residential dwelling unit, or some people refer to it as a single-family home. Either way, it is one home with multiple co-owners, and each interest is sellable on the open market. Now they go on to say, shared home ownership, and they're putting that in quotes, is growing in popularity both abroad and throughout North America. At Solterra, we have adapted this concept to the unique requirements of senior citizens, people with disabilities, students, and anyone else who wishes to create an intergenerational home. That's an end quote there. That's the paragraph on their website, on the Solterra website. Those are a couple of options I've discovered for seniors who want to explore the shared housing arrangement. And I intend to discuss a couple of things I've found for young people, but I think I'll put that off until the next show. The only thing I'll add here along those lines are a couple of terms that I've come across that seem to be fairly widely used and seem to be understood to have fairly consistent meaning from what I've seen so far. One of them is co-housing and the other is co-living. Now, again, all of this is my early impression, so if I'm mistaken, I will come up with a correction next time. Don't quote me and don't make any legal decisions based on what I'm saying here. This is anecdotal only at this point. But it looks like co-housing refers to people that want to own but want to share either the entire house, and in the case of the Soltera I just spoke of, or there's a whole page on Wikipedia about co-housing. I haven't had a chance to read entirely. Apparently there's a whole gamut of shared options, some aspect of your home or the amenities that can be shared. Shared communities, I guess, is the term. So co-housing apparently refers to ownership with the option, with the shared option, some element of sharing. Now, co-living, on the other hand, seems to be even newer. That seems to be part of the internet economy, the various things that have cropped up. This is, as I understand it, appears to be an option for the young person, well, maybe the young professional, young person going to the big city to work, rather than just get an apartment and go to Craigslist and try to find some roommates. There are a number of companies, a number of startups that are making it possible for them to, for these people to rent. As I understand it, co-living is renting, but with a shared arrangement where all the work is pretty much done for you. It sounds pretty neat. That's something I will investigate further, and again, I'll hopefully be able to interview some of those folks as well and get some experiences here on the show. And as I keep saying, all of this comes back to the ability for everyone involved in these shared situations, whether it's shared ownership or shared rental or whatever, that the better people get along with each other, the better they're able to have a sort of minimal amount of just consideration for each other and all that, the better these things will work, whether it's young people, old people, ownership, rental. Our world is moving us all in the direction where it looks like more and more of us are going to have to share more and more of our living space in many cases. So however much grace and courtesy and consideration for each other we can come up with will only be to the good, and that's the goal for me, the roommate coach. Once again, world peace, one roommate at a time. That will be it for this episode 15 of The Roommate Coach. This has been, turns out it's been part 1 of shared housing options for the 21st century. Again, up episode 15. I'm Mark Lynn. I'm the Roommate Coach. The motto here is world peace, one roommate at a time. This is on, or you're listening to, I should say, KZZH 96.7 FM in Eureka, California. KZZH has been brought to the air here in Eureka by Access Humboldt. You can reach them at accesshumboldt.net. The bumper music is called Rollin' at 5. That's by Kevin MacLeod. And of course, you can leave feedback for me, the Roommate Coach, at theroommatecoach.com. Also on theroommatecoach.com, on the homepage, there is a link to the shows. You'll see a KZZH panel in the upper right. If you go click on that, you'll be brought to a page with all of the, or almost all, and very soon it will be all of the shows, the former shows. And the nice thing too is I'm going to post show notes and links and any links that I mention in the show will be available on my website on theroommatecoach.com. And you can leave feedback at area 707-362-8000. That's 707-362-8000. So once again, thank you a ton, as they say, for listening, and I look forward to talking to you again real soon.